Good morning and welcome to the Up Zone, where understanding politics is made simple. We are your two hosts. I am Tisha S. Waddell, former City Council representative for the 3rd District in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I am seated next to the illustrious former House representative for the 43rd District in the state of North Carolina, Mr. Elmer Floyd. Good morning, Mr. Floyd. How are you?
I'm I'm good, T. So far, so good, so good, so far.
Wonderful. I am very glad to hear that. Before we even get into the meat and potatoes of our podcast today, I would like for us to just take a moment, Mr. Floyd. You so wonderfully reminded me this morning of the tragedy that occurred in Charlotte. We saw that there were 4 law enforcement officers who were killed in the line of duty as a result of executing a warrant. We are not sure of all of the details of what happened because, of course, there have to be investigations, but we do know that a senseless tragedy has occurred. And like I told my husband, I think that the warrant was for a felony weapons charge, if I'm not mistaken. And I told my husband, I said, there's no instance that should facilitate a loss of life. I think that we've become so desensitized, but we would like to, per your request, which I think was a wonderful suggestion, we just like to take a moment and just be quiet and let our listeners reflect on this tragedy and say a prayer for these families. So, a moment of silence. Thank you, Mr. Floyd. Now, I don't understand why anybody would think that, and I guess that will never know the mind of a criminal, but I don't understand why anybody would ever think that the appropriate response would be, let me, instead of taking responsibility for me doing something wrong, let me be the executioner of these officers and let me change these families' lives forever in such a horrific way. But it speaks a lot to the state of the mental state of the world we live in, Mr. Floyd.
So true, T. So
And
true.
it's very sad, and it makes me it just is very sad. And I'll say this, there was a time when people were wanting to defund the police, and they were vilifying the police for some of the responses. And I never, it doesn't matter which way the violence goes, I never condone it. I never think that it is okay. And I think that we should always remember moments like this when we question a what we might consider an extreme response of an officer in a situation where they are faced almost a life or death situation. These men and women willingly go in, much like our military. They willingly go in knowing that they're going to face danger, and they're executing the duties and responsibilities of their job. And sometimes we, John Q. Public, expect that they're supposed to put their safety and them returning home to their family secondary to the safety of the people that they are that they are working to execute their job through. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, it's sort of like, a teacher, as an example. These individuals that are first responders love what they're doing. You have to love it in order to do it. And given the response of law enforcement officers across this nation, we can see the lack of respect that many citizens have for law enforcement agents, officers. So it's a tragic thing that it took place, and teach to give you an example about how our society is moving. I just read the other day where that there was a disturbance at a washerette. You know, this is a washerette now, where a person is washing clothes. There was a misunderstanding, and they called different people. Different people arrived. One chased down a person with a gun. This is at a washerette where you're washing clothes. The person was shooting at the individual driving down the street. One was hit with an iron piece of iron across the forehead. This is at a washerette. So our society, as a whole, it's just mind-boggling with the mindset. Now here it is. Those individuals are going to have a criminal record if they already don't have one.
Oh, they're going to jail for good. Like this is it now. If they had a chance to go home, they don't now.
Well, see, and then again, I it goes back to one thing, teaching. This has no relationship. Our community breed neighborhoods, for violence, and that is through code enforcement, because we have a lot of segments of our community are open 24/7, and by being open 24/7, you breed this kind of environment. So I just pray for the family of those individuals that lost loved ones, and those individuals that was injured.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Floyd, what are the announcements that we have for this week for our audience?
Well, today, Chief, and I think you was on the council at that time, and that's the beach. That is the East Senior Citizen building. It's going to have a ribbon cutting today at 11 o'clock on Washington Drive. So that center will be open today at 11 o'clock. So, Tish, uh, although we had a disagreement last week on you voting for to allow a person to be the bondsman for the city, I just want to say that to you that I'm somewhat proud that the building took
Remember, I told you that's the only vote I regret. That's the one vote on council I absolutely regret.
well, I just want to remind you that you voted that way. Just in case you don't walk around here with your head up in the air, is that you voted, that way. Now the Martin Luther King committee is going to the Shaw University banquet is going to be on June the 7th.
Mr. Floyd, this used to be such a big deal for Mr. Lacey. I just wonder what it's going to be like this year without him present, because this was Mr. Lacey's event, was Shaw University's banquet.
Well, it was and it still is. And the thing about it, Tish, if you can do something that that others will carry on, it's beautiful. I can recall doing the Human Relation Annual Banquet, and I think now it's been going on 55 years. So if we can do this for that long period of time, then he will always be recognized as assisting a HBCU student enrollment because they use the money for scholarships. So it's a good program.
Absolutely. And I hope that nobody ever forgets the impact that you all made through these programs. I hope that people continue to remind generations to come where this came from. But go ahead, finish with those announcements, sir.
Martin Luther King banquet is planned for, and by the way, Shaw will be at the Fuller Center this year. And the Martin Luther King banquet will be June the 29th, and it will be at the Metropolitan Room downtown. And that committee, Human Relations again started off with that project with getting the holiday for the city, the county, and the state and the school system. Now they have $7 million to do a capital improvement plan. So So they are working, they're working on that. Geez. So hopefully that these two programs will generate revenue for those prospective organizations to move forward, to continue to move forward.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any other announcements, Mr. Floyd?
No, that's the only one. There was supposed to be a Martin Luther King election committee meeting today, but that has been postponed.
Postponed due to.
Well, the building that they will utilize also is the building. Well, it's Park and Rec building, and all the emphasis today is pushing towards the opening of the East Center. So most of the staff would be, over there working, trying to get that ready. So today was not a good time to have that.
So just bad timing, conflict of timing. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Mr. Floyd, we always have these show preps, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did not do this morning during show prep, and you probably hear it right now, which is why I keep muting my audio. But I when we got ready to do our show prep, because I'm sure you guys know we record the podcast from the comfort of our home. So this morning I got up and I decided that I was going to go ahead and put my husband's uniforms in the wash so that I could get that done before I got my day going. Well, I didn't balance the load. And so now it's spinning and it is so loud. And I want to run over there and rebalance the load, but I'm not going to. So if y'all hear sounds in the background, nobody's trying to break in my house. It's literally just an unbalanced load spinning in the wash so that I can make sure that my husband's uniforms are good to go for him for next week. I probably could have waited. I should have waited. It's not 10 o'clock yet, so I'm not even within the time of use. But I just wanted to get it done. So that's what you hear if you hear something in the background. Now, Floyd, what we talked about a lot this morning, but where I think we ought to start, because this seems to be of particular interest to you, because you are holding on to hope for this elevator downtown.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about.
I just mentioned last week that I hope Jones is able to sell the Prince Charles and put the three stories on top of the fourth.
So let's talk about that before we even get into this next story. So let's talk about these buildings downtown, because you and I did have one of our conversations about what it could possibly mean to have five major buildings for sale within the
But
same vicinity. So, Mr. Floyd, one of the pieces of conjecture that you and I both, I think, share is a little different from the perspective that John Malzone shared, because John Malzone indicated, hey, it's a good thing. It means that there's growth going on. You and I look at this from maybe a different perspective. What does it potentially say to you that there are five buildings for sale within the same vicinity?
it looks to me that there is some concerns. Is that is the downtown area growing as some projected to be? I mean, five buildings at one time for a real estate company. Yes, it's beautiful.
Well, because they're going to make money if and when those buildings sell. So this was my add-on to that. My add-on to that is, there's a photographer in our area who has really chronologically captured the growth and development of our community, particularly our downtown area. And his name is Frank Manus. Frank has all of these historical photographs that we are privy to because he shares them often on his social media of what downtown used to look like when downtown, okay, it's easing up on us, when downtown was the hub for entertainment, and I'm doing the air quotes, so it was the hub for entertainment. We see a lot of like lounges and recreation activity. But the thing about it, Mr. Floyd, is they went in and they took all of that, they stripped all of that away, right?
Yes.
So downtown was like this quaint, it became this quaint little quiet area where people just kind of tried to figure out what to do. And so we started seeing little boutiques pop up downtown. We saw some restaurants pop up downtown. We started seeing, the government buildings infilling downtown. Now we're beginning to see a return to, I'm going to call it party culture, because we're seeing those breweries come back. The lounges are being replaced with alcohol service. And I think there's this idea that it's inherently different, Mr. Floyd, by the powers that be that are kind of drawing this back into the downtown area. But I think what doesn't happen is the understanding that it's a return.
What teach you got to look at it. How do you grow? You know, and that's one thing. But when that's one area that they are trying to keep growth in. But downtown has only two possible anchors, and they are not strong anchors. That's the county building and city hall. There's not enough traffic downtown, during lunch hour or between 5 and, because you was on the council then. I hate to say this again, but when you approve parking to 7 o'clock at night, there, so you had to have an attorney to figure out when to come downtown to visit downtown, because you don't know when a special event is going to take place. That certain places is going to be a
You need
different.
an event planner to plan your trip downtown.
You need that. Okay. There, and I think that they was trying to address the parking downtown. Uh,
Right.
that has been somewhat been placed on
But is
hold.
this but when we see these vacant not vacant, because they're not all vacant, but when we see the for sale signs on these buildings, is that an indicator that the trajectory is slowing, or is that an indicator that the trajectory is
One
that we're on target?
one would look at the four as being a indicator, because if so those four goes, there may be other goals, because others may depend on those 4 or 5 buildings.
Right.
You know,
So I'm going to use my neighborhood as an example. Typically in my neighborhood, houses don't sit for sale long, right? So we don't see like this high volume of for sale signs in my neighborhood, because it has been a really stable neighborhood, and when a house goes up for sale, it's coveted and it's pulled off, it's snatched up very quickly. If I started seeing um a lot of for sale signs in my neighborhood, that would say something to me.
well, what you
It
should
would say that the neighborhood is getting ready to change.
well, let me say this to you also too, and a lot of those buildings downtown are historical,
Right.
and that means that it would cost more to have those
They're
buildings
hard to
restored
renovate.
than
Unless you just do what you want and then ask for it to be included later, like we saw with the Crest building. But go ahead.
you see. And just the other day, I was riding through downtown, and the old city hall that's on both Street and Green Street.
Hmm.
And I believe that building in the last 10 years has been painted 3 times. That's because of the historical recognition that the
Right.
building had in order to upkeep it. Now, what they have in order to paint that building, they had this beautiful piece of equipment where you ride up now and you paint the windows and you scrape them and whatnot. And it's a cost factor too to maintain that.
Absolutely.
And if you don't do that, you can ask the gentleman that had Prince Charles when he tried to use some vinyl windows in order to offset his renovation costs.
Mr. Floyd, I read a comment the other day because somebody was saying, Chin, that was his name. They were saying, they wonder what happened to Chin and how he feels about all of this in hindsight. But there was an allegation made on this post by, I want to say, by Darden Jenkins. And Darden Jenkins has really been an integral factor in this conversation, like putting information out. I've not vetted this, so I don't know how accurate this is, but I will say that the Post indicated that Chin was in partnership with Jordan Jones, that he had made money off of the sale of this building to Jordan Jones. So I don't know how accurate that is, but it would not surprise me if Chin has already recouped whatever he lost as a result of
Well,
what
Tisha,
you just talked
Prince
about.
Charles has been sold 3 to 4 times in the last 2 decades.
Absolutely.
So this is not new uh, 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 to me uh,
Right.
as it relates to Prince
And
Charles.
let us not forget the scandal that took place my first term in office with a council member, Tyrone Williams, who was accused of trying to leverage some information or solicit gain from Jordan Jones regarding the Prince Charles. So there's a lot that ties back to that particular building. But when we talk about the sale of these five locations, I think it is important for us to ask the question, are we moving forward or are we going backwards? And I think that what will answer that question, much like with my neighborhood, what will answer that question is how rapidly these buildings sell.
Well,
So
Tisha,
if these
sell
buildings
the
sit for a
building.
long time, that says something.
You can sell the building, but how long would it take for economic development to take place?
But only a fool buys something that they are not prepared to develop, because you still have to pay that bill and you're not bringing in any money. And I don't think that there are many foolish people with the type of money that it will take to purchase these buildings downtown.
Well, Tish, now, only thing I know, Tish, is that a friend of yours purchased some land and then wanted to change it to another type
I
of.
love how you call people that don't even like me my friend. I love that.
Unless you do that kind of economic development, you
Right.
you buy it on a
Well, but
hook.
that person kind of has an inside scoop. So they, that was less of a risk because they've got the ear of the government. But moving right along.
Money that you sitting on with another investment that you are trying to recoup, but your purchase is related upon the development, and so you were sort of like a hen. You were sitting on all of this money and no growth.
Right. So when we talk about downtown, we definitely need to talk about parking. So this takes us back to what I was saying about, what you brought forward, in terms of what what are we expecting, from downtown. You mentioned this $575,000 project downtown. Go ahead and talk about it, Mr. Floyd, because this is
I'm just, I was hoping that Jones' property, Prince Charles, would be the first one sold, so that he could start building his 3 stories, and I can get an elevator and a parking deck that you all built, 4 stories with
right.
no elevator, and so
Well,
I.
what we're doing instead, what our city is doing instead is they're increasing a 34 space lot to 86 spaces at a cost of $575,000. Let's look at this cost wise. So I pulled out a handy dandy calculator because I want to make sure I give the most accurate number. 575,000 divided by, we're going to say 52, because that's how many spaces we're increasing by 52 spaces, means that each parking space is going to cost $11,057.69. So $11,057.69 for each parking space. What is going to be the return on that investment as you see it?
Well, Jesus is a charity. It's a charitable organ. It's a charitable contribution to assist again, the baseball stadium.
Well, do you think that this is in assistance of the baseball stadium, or do you think that this is in assistance to the new development that Jordan Jones wants to build, or do you think that it's in assistance to the civic center that is potentially going downtown? What do you think
I would
this
say
is?
the baseball. At present, I would say the baseball stadium, because you're still within a maybe a 10 minutes walk to the civic center.
Well, now the city is touting that this is going to support the it's going to be good for employees to allow closer parking to City Hall for residents.
Okay,
I don't.
now who's going to pay for that?
Well, the city.
Somebody is going to have to offset this cost. So you
Well,
can
what's going to happen if it's going to be for employees? The employees have to lease their spaces. They get a lower lease rate, but they'll have to lease their
yeah,
spaces.
yes.
But how much does the lease have to be to cover $11,000? And does this make it more palatable to want to work at the city? Like, what is the reason for $11,000 per parking space for an investment like this? I think that understanding that makes a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, I understand their particular perspective. You know, the lot is there. It's a I'll say a clay lot. You know,
So doing some so it holds 34 cars currently.
yeah. I mean,
Taking the clay lot and expanding it makes sense, is what you're saying.
yeah. I mean, because now it's no, it's just a unique parking space. You just drive
Mhm.
up to the park. It's not, reconfigured. What I saw was just a dirt space.
Right, right.
So by improvement, you do have the baseball stadium, and it's not that far from the transit center
See,
for
and
those
that's
persons.
what I was thinking, because I think that the train station needs additional parking, because when you when you are traveling or you are going to drop somebody off or pick them up, it is difficult to find where to park to facilitate that.
Yes, and so that's what I'm saying. I mean, the train station, the civic center, all that can play a part. But I do think that at some point in time, I'm sure that they would do the destination parking for those persons who want to ride the train can park long term, and also those that want to provide utilize the city bus terminal to make short distance travel and return back. Get their way.
Mhm. Well, Mr. Floyd, I wish the city well on this project. I hope that it definitely yields what they wanted to yield. I'm looking forward to seeing how that turns out, and that's just that.
But again, teach, I'm still concerned about the elevator because those senior citizens, got to park and then walk up and down the flights. That's a beautiful building too, by the way.
Right.
Beautiful building downtown.
Listen, let me ask you a question, because you concerned about that elevator. I'm concerned about understanding why the Spring Lake Board of Aldermen want to change their term to 4 years, and why they want to change their name from alderman to
Commissioners.
why?
Well, some believe that 2 years is a short period of time
Well,
to,
let's start before we start there. Let's start with aldermen to commissioners.
well, you know,
Is it for status?
it has a little bit more. Now don't forget, Hope Mill also is commissioners, I believe.
They are commissioners.
Yes. So I forgot what definition that they use that it brings by changing the two. So, but they're basically looking at the term limits, and also the mayor ability to vote, and not as it relates to voting in case of a tie. But to me, it make we talked about this sometime back when Marshall Pitt was the mayor. Marshall
Mm-hmm.
was elected by the citizens of Fayetteville. Because he was elected the mayor, you took away his statutory authority to vote by having a policy wherein that the mayor couldn't vote unless it was a tie. But he or she should have the same right as any council member or commission.
So at one point in the city of Fayetteville, the mayor couldn't vote unless it was a tie.
So now by change, so by
How do
change,
you ever have a tie with a 10 member board and five four if your mayor can't vote? How do you ever
well,
have a tie?
well, everybody don't show up every time.
Okay.
Okay. Everybody don't show up every time, so you know. But at that time, he couldn't vote. He couldn't vote on all matters,
Right.
But he was elected by the people simply to preside over the city council meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you should always have a voting mayor. Don't have the mayor as a
I
ceremonial.
don't know. There's been plenty of times where I've go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
If you, I mean, that's the reason why I would want to serve on it because it gives me some voting power.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to be sitting on the board literally saying that Florida is an ex-official member. The point of me going on the board as an ex-official member with no voting power but to sit there.
Right. But I want to, but I,
I'm just
but,
one I can use.
right. But I want to touch back on this 4-year terms for Spring Lake. The city of Fayetteville has attempted that several times. They've had that conversation. I think that it doesn't really matter to me because I don't live in Spring Lake. So let me start by saying that it doesn't really affect me and I don't really have a dog in that fight. But I will say that it's strange to me because even when they have to go about the business of their elections, the volume of people that they have to touch compared to a larger municipality is so different that it just seems.
It's a smaller number.
Yeah, and it's just interesting. I'd like to hear their justification for that, but everybody's justification is always the same because it's hard to get anything done in 2 years. But even at the state level, you guys serve for 2 years, so it doesn't that doesn't balance out. That doesn't balance out for me. I think either you work or you don't. Either you get reelected or you don't. And I am proof positive. You can look at me as the poster child for once you're elected, if you put together a great plan, whether you are there or not, it will move forward. Because the amazing work that I was able to get done as a city councilwoman continues to move forward at the behest of my counterparts who were there because it was good. And so if you do good work, good things continue and even in your absence. So I just
Well,
yeah, I have a different perspective on that. I think people should have to get back before the people as often as possible because if you stop doing what we want you to do, we should be able to get you out of there without having to jump through all of these hoops to do so.
let me say this, Tish, and you are right about one of your projects, and even one of your projects in the meeting with the city council, with the
Which
local.
one, Mr. Floyd? Don't you try to be funny and throw shade. Which one?
Now the meeting with the city council that they had on April the 29th, they had $1 million in there for storm drain.
See, and the thing. Thank you, Mr. Floyd, because that was my wheelhouse. I wanted sidewalks, I wanted streets, I wanted more money for sidewalks, more money for street resurfacing, and I wanted to see us really do some major improvement with our stormwater drainage. So absolutely, those things continue to move forward. And they're moving forward in the way that I crafted and designed when I was bringing these ideas forward to the council because they were good ideas. And
Well,
if you have good ideas, they'll move forward.
you made another request and a budget that I mean, and request of your vision that's not going anywhere, but was $1 million in there.
Yeah, and so let's talk a little bit about that meeting. But before we jump into that meeting, let's no, let's go to that meeting. So our city officials met with the North Carolina delegation. You not gonna tell me, God bless you, Mr. Floyd. You see me over here sneezing.
I figured out that you would stop after a while.
Woo, God bless me. Thank you, Jesus. This our city officials met with the state delegation. They do this every year. What they meet about, Floyd? What they talk about?
Well, they meet with the delegation with a wish list and hope that the delegation in itself will provide a death sentence for themselves. And that death sentence is that if you get these things for me and the party does not agree to support the budget and you voted for the budget, then they may primary you in future elections. That's the death sentence.
So I want to start first by this picture that they used on City View today. And let me say this. I think that as somebody with a marketing background who really understands branding and visual impact, I just want to say I wonder what City View today is trying to say with this picture. Because if you notice, it is not really like Representative Smith. Look at his facial expression. Look at all of their facial expressions. It's almost as if to say, why are we here? What are you talking about? That is what I see on their face
Well, true,
in this picture.
because what they understand is that why are you meeting with me on the 29th?
To in short session
Yes,
to
and
ask me for $38 million. And here's the projects. So the city is asking for $38 million for the MacArthur Road Sports Complex project, for 16 million, for 9 million for the Cape Fear River project, 3 million for the Regional Police Training Center, 2.5 million for the city corridor improvements, 2 million for Cape Fear River Park Trail Extension Phase 2. Every time the city gets money, this one irked my nerves because every time the city gets money for the Cape Fear River Trail Park extension, they reposition that money somewhere else to make up in the budget. So like it's always reassigned somewhere. But anyway, $2 million for solid waste and transit facility, 1 million for workforce development, 1 million for homeless support initiatives, 1 million for mental health co-response, 1 million for community-based violence interruption programs. I don't see 3 million in there for Mario's program. And then what was interesting to me, Mr. Floyd, was as I went on to read, I went down and I saw what was important to each of the people who was in attendance to this meeting. And very little of what they said their priorities were lined up with what the city was asking for.
well, that's true. Just like I said, that if if they provide this $38 million in this short session, which will not happen, then it will be a death sentence for them, even in the long session that they
Right.
bring forth these suggestions and recommendations. If you really want to know the death sentence, you can ask Senator Kurt Cavill and Alma Floyd.
Well,
Um,
you told me to bring this up. I want you to explain this death sentence because as people are talking about, as people are listening to us, I think that they really need to understand what you mean when you say that. And Mr. Floyd, I said to you, explain this to me. So this is the calendar from the North Carolina legislators website, ncleg.gov. And how does this affirm what you're saying about this perceived death notice?
what teachers say bills directly or primarily affecting the 24 and 25-year budget.
So this is what they're currently discussing is bills directly and primarily affecting the current 2024-2025 budget,
budget.
or primarily affecting state or local retirement systems. So things that are all bills that are currently that are affecting the budget that we are currently working in.
Yes, so they must be filed by April the 15th, no later than May the 2nd.
So it's already that time is already passed.
Already passed. So to me, what that's why these individuals are looking like this. Why are you having this meeting with me and we are already in session and already in a time crunch? And now you want me
To
to
add
do,
in this stuff.
yeah, I mean, which the session is a session to tweak the 2-year budget.
Mr. Floyd, I need for us to say this just one more time because you said this to me in prep and I missed it until just now. So let's say this one more time. The request filing deadline. What was the date of the meeting? They had that meeting on what date?
The 29th of April,
The 29th of April, which was a
Thursday,
what
I
day of
believe.
the week
Friday.
was that?
Friday. It's a Friday.
Which was a Friday. So nobody's working on Saturday, nobody's working on Sunday. So Monday would have been the I need to look at a calendar because I want to be accurate. So Monday would have been the
Monday,
29th.
Monday would Monday Monday would have been the 29th. Yes.
So they met on the 29th. They met on Monday.
No, they met with the delegation on that Friday.
So they met with the delegation on the 27th.
Yeah.
So the 26th. They met on the 26th. Monday was the 29th. So they were saying within the next 1, 2, 3, 4 days, we would like for y'all to write a bill for the inclusion of these items that we want in the budget.
Yes. Which is
Is,
just
is
about.
that I was getting ready. That's exactly what I was getting ready to ask you. Is that possible?
It's a what I'm saying. It was a complete waste of the delegation time, and the city council time, and the lobbyists. The
But what if they're just trying to be proactive, Mr. Floyd, and put it before them so that just playing devil's advocate, what if they're just trying to be proactive, put it before the delegation as a, hey, here's our wish list, so that as you start planning for the 2025-2026 budget.
Tish, I'm trying to say to you in plain English, if you bring back money to Cumberland County, the city of Fayetteville, the voters will vote you out because the party did not support the budget.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because there was an article, and you have been saying this all along. There was an article that I came across that I was like, this is exactly what Mr. Floyd has been talking about. A guy named Cecil Brockman. Cecil Brockman is and the title of the article was about him opening up about his mental health and fight within the party. I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this. You tell me if you can hear it, Floyd, when I play it, okay?
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Let me cue everything up so that when it comes on, my hope is that you will be able to hear this. Now, Cecil Brockman is a Democrat. And there's some other stuff about him, but I'm not going to get all into that. But he's a Democrat. He represents District 60, which is Guilford County, which encompasses High Point and some other areas around there. And he himself refers to his district as a poor Black district. Okay. Let's listen.
American representative, 9 times out of 10, he's representing a minority district.
So let me play this because I want our audience to hear what Cecil has to say, which ties into what we're talking about, what Representative Brockman has to say. Tell me if you can hear it, Floyd.
You're in a super minority, and that matters. It matters that the Republicans have all the power, and they don't have to talk to the Democratic governor. They don't have to talk to Democratic lawmakers. They don't have to talk to Cecil Brockman to accomplish their goals. And the fact that I'm able to work for my district and get resources.
I'm going to pause occasionally so we can talk about this. He said the Republicans all have all the power, and they don't have to talk to me to accomplish what they want to accomplish. Now, I'm familiar with that because that's how I felt during my term of service. Mitch doesn't have to come to me to get done what he wants to get done. He doesn't need me. He has his 6. So, Floyd, I know how that feels. So what he's saying is they don't need me. So there's no, why should they have to come and compromise with me? They don't need me. If anything, if I want to get something done, I have to go compromise with them. I need them. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to play this a little bit more. Let's see.
For my district, for a poor Black district, and I feel like the progressive side that always says that they care about poor Black people, they say they care about women, they say they care about our most vulnerable people. That's exactly the folks who I'm helping that in my community. That is my community. And this budget passes without Cecil Brockman.
Again, this budget is going to pass with or without me.
That is correct.
So if I'm going to help y'all, I got to get in where I can.
Yes. To bring back resources.
It's not about selling out. It's not about playing the party. It's about, I want to bring money back into my community, into my poor Black community. And in order to do that, I got to play politics. I got to go over here and I got to talk to them because they're not going to come over here and talk to me because they don't have to. Let's keep listening.
Whether Cecil Brockman works for his district or whether he doesn't work for the district, the budget will pass. Mm-hmm. And the fact that the budget passed with more than $29.5 million that is going to a community that needs it, that desperately needs it, and that has never gotten funding from the state government like that before.
Okay, we're gonna have a couple of y'all just gonna have to bear through um these ads because this is on their website. But he said the fact that this budget was able to pass with $29 million for my poor black district means I did something.
Well, see, that's what happened, Chief. What I'm saying. So if you get this $28 million and the Democrat Party don't want you to have it, don't want you to prove, don't support the budget,
Right.
you may be primary. And that
Right.
goes for any one of the three Democrat representatives.
But that is solely based upon a misunderstanding of how this process goes. Again, that is why we exist, because people are allowing this to happen because the party can go back now and say he voted with the Republicans.
That's
But
it.
the reality is he voted that way because he had to bring home the bacon to his district. Let's
But
listen a little bit more.
But the truth of the matter, Chief, over 85 to 89% of all votes taken in the General Assembly
Are bipartisan. Absolutely. Let's listen a little bit more.
Those people. And so if you're going to criticize me for working for my district, you need to take a strong look at yourself, in my opinion, because I'm helping the exact people that you say that you want to help. Democrats have a horrible hand. we have no power, they have a super majority,
Floyd.
Yes.
He said y'all have no power. So there has to come a point where you are honest like this and you say, listen, people, we are not the party in power.
Well, what T said is no different than what is being said. It said that the Democrat, and I'm a Democrat, and I think it was 16, 20, it was 16, 20, and 22, I believe. It said we have the voting strength, but we just got to figure out how we can get them to the polls.
Let's finish listening.
And that matters. It matters whether or not you have to talk to Democrats. They talk to me, but they don't have to. They don't have to talk to me for anything. So the fact that I can get, people might criticize and think these are small changes that I'm able to get, but they don't have to. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to talk to, I make this point again, they don't have to talk to me. They don't have to talk to any other Democratic lawmaker, and they don't have to talk to our Democratic governor. They can just decide amongst themselves and then go vote, I don't have any power, and so the more that Democrats can really come together, and
a diaper this. So there's definitely a plea here from him. Let's get it together, Democrats. But the truth of the matter, Mr. Floyd, is the honesty in what he's saying is going to be missed by so many because I believe that your party would rather believe that they have the ability to get something done than to really believe what he's saying is true.
Let me say this to you, Chief, because this is something very dear to me. When Chancellor Anderson came to Fayetteville State, okay, prior to him arriving, the Democrat was in charge of the General Assembly for 144 years.
Right.
He mentioned that for 22 years, Fayetteville State received no money for capital projects on the campus.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the 5 HBCU that's part of the 16 universal campus, we can see bare minimum growth.
Absolutely.
Was in charge, T. We was in charge, the Democrat. We had Mickey Michaud, which was the appropriation chair. And in Cumberland County, we had Rick Glazier, which was the education appropriation chair. And we had Representative Marvin Lucas, which was the educational chair. And you can see zero growth while they was there. I just so happened to realize that as a representative, I had to walk across the aisle if I wanted anything.
Right. Well, Mr. Floyd, here's what's very interesting to me. The fact that as we see the growth and development on Fayetteville State, so we also see it looks like this started over. So I'm going to actually go ahead and close this out. But you all get the point we're trying to make about this particular conversation. But Mr. Floyd, even with Fayetteville State, we see relationships matter because we now see a McAllister's Deli at the across the street from Fayetteville State. We see a Chick-fil-A coming across the street from Fayetteville State. And let me tell you what Chick-fil-A is going to do to the Murchison Road corridor. It's going to breathe life to that end of the Murchison Road corridor.
Increase traffic to a store.
Absolutely. Because no Chick-fil-A fails. They bring people because for some reason it's like there's crack in the chicken because everybody wants the chicken.
Yes.
And they keep coming back for this chicken. So, Floyd, I'm gonna just say, I think that, and that's another person who caught a lot of hell from the community based upon those relationships.
Yes.
But I think that people need to start getting very serious about understanding that if you cannot play a bipartisan game of politics, you are going to be a failure at what you're doing.
Well, Teach, let me give you an example and come right back. There was persons that approached the General Assembly and got $500 million, 250 and 250 for educational programs at the various public college that would increase the economic opportunities from those research projects. Now, Tish, now I don't know about you, but to get $500 million in a budget cycle, you got to have some relationships here.
You would think.
You got to have some relationships.
You
And
would
so,
think.
how are you going to grow if you don't have relationship when you are not in control? But you get penalized. For instance, I put in a large amount of money for my campaign. In my 12 years with the Democrat Party, I got less than $100, and I had to redo my report because they sent it in during that cycle, but we didn't get it into the next cycle, so I had to do my report. If I'd have known that, I would have sent them the $100. Okay, so having said that, even in a swing district that I was in the last election, the second election for them, they did not send out one political ad, but I invested a large sum of money. Okay, a
Right.
large sum of money, and they expect for me to go home and wait by the telephone for their instruction.
Right.
You see, and that's not going to happen to you. And so they spent $1 million. I'm so proud of a poor black male from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. Got somebody to spend $1 million on me to unseat me. I think about that all the time and laugh about it. Never had nobody to spend $1 million on me.
Right.
To unseat me and lose the seat altogether. We have a lot to do in my party if we are going to be successful in November. Although the president opened the office here, as you well know.
I don't well know. I don't know anything about that. Tell me about it.
Well, they opened the office there, and of the 88,000 Democrats, there were only 25 Democrats that was at the opening. See, we talk a good game, but our delivery services is not Amazon.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Okay, it's far from being Amazon.
Right.
So our voter turnout, and like I said to you, and just like with Caesar, we had the young Democrats to target these individuals. Now, I said to you on previous podcasts that I was at two rec centers during the election cycle.
Right.
Young people didn't pay us no mind as they walked by us to pick up their kids. These were young people, childbearing, not like the E. Smith, where they say that there's no childbearing in there.
Right.
They paid us interest. This is the same one that target these individuals.
Right.
So no interest in voting, And so we got to energize. We can't do the same thing. And I don't know
Right.
about you, Keisha, but it's hard for somebody to slap me in my face and ask me to get up and join them in November.
Listen, my mother used to tell me, she used to say, and she wouldn't say it to me, but I'd hear her say it. You're not going to piss in my face and tell me it's raining.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
that mindset, I think, is the mindset that I think, and not just Democrats, but people who are loyal to parties, period, should have that mindset, especially when it comes to your government. You should be looking for results. Look for results. And if the results are happening, you may not be need to be so quick about criticizing how members of the party are telling you that these results are coming to pass. First of all, these people have these and Mr. Floyd, I'm not talking about you, but I am talking about your party. But most people who are loyal to a party have the goal of making sure that the party comes first, that the party is positioned to come first. And there's a problem in that, because if your party comes first, your people can never be first.
Latish, let me say this to you, and I said this at many Democrat rallies.
Mm-hmm.
A person of the other zip code cannot get elected unless he or she has a D in front of their name. When they
Right,
go to the poll, the first thing they ask is he or she a Democrat. Don't know that they have slapped you the day before.
right.
They're just concerned about whether he or she is a
Is a
Democrat.
Democrat. Right.
And what we have, and I know it's time for us to close, we have Democrats, just like the 26 Marvin plan, whichever plan you talk about, is that we get elected, we forget about our community as being a food desert,
Mm-hmm.
a desert with no bank, with no drugstore. We forget all about that.
Mm-hmm.
Our mindset then becomes a
But let me
city.
tell you something. I need to say this. I gotta say this because I said it to my mother the other day. We cannot keep calling our community a food desert. But go ahead, Mr. Floyd.
Well, Tish, the only thing that you have is a Family Dollar store.
You have access to multiple grocery stores. We maybe we need to educate our community better about what opportunities exist, but we cannot, people bring money in to where they know they'll make money. So if we're good, we are not a food desert because we have virtual access to be able to get food in from a number of different grocery stores to anywhere in this city.
I'm saying where you stay at, you are truly blessed. You are right up the street from a food line.
Don't even try it, Mr. Floyd. Don't
Now,
even try it, Mr. Floyd. I
let me-
still order my groceries.
well, if you in Murchison Road, where you going? You gonna go to food
I'm
line,
ordering my
or
groceries.
you
Either I'm
gonna
going
go
to,
to
right, I'm gonna drive on the food line.
the
But again, I have a car, so it's unique for me. I recognize that I'm not the average target audience. I'm younger and I have a vehicle. I get all of that. But I just want us to stop saying we're a food desert, because I think what we really are is we're deficient and being a community in general.
Well,
And
I
I
tell
think that's the point I'm trying to make. Because Mr. Floyd, if you were my father and you lived in an area, if you didn't have a car and you're my dad and you live in an area where you can't get your groceries, as your daughter, I'm going to make sure that you have access to be able to get what you need.
you, but I also want to be able to catch the public transit to a store in my area that I don't have to go to the grocery store and it take me 3 hours to make a round trip.
I'm gonna still say what I said. I think we're deficient in community.
Well, again, T, you have a responsibility as an elected official is to look at your community because your
Because
community
you're representing a district.
that is correct, and you
Yes,
must do everything that you can to make sure that that district is well fed. But
that's
what
right.
we do when we get elected, we take the agenda of the other zip code and carry it out to its fullest, Miss Waddell.
I
And
don't disagree, Mr.
look,
Floyd.
and let,
I
let,
do
let-
not disagree with you, Mr. Floyd.
okay,
I don't disagree. I
and
don't
that's the
disagree at
problem.
all.
That's the
So let me
problem.
say this, because we are at our 1 hour mark. I want to ask you this. What do you want to leave with the people?
In November, please look at the person that you vote for and see if he or she is FedEx, UPS, Amazon. Okay. And if they don't fit into those three categories right now, speaking of the other one I left out, then you need to do an assessment.
Absolutely.
That's all
Absolutely.
I'm saying to you. You need to do
Absolutely.
an assessment. And we talked today about if it's a Democrat and they step outside of the party, he or she will be primary. So you might need to
Absolutely.
look at whether or not that's a vote.
Absolutely. And I want to say this. I'm gonna say two things. The first thing I want to say is I want to thank the people who have reached out to me and told me that my hair was looking good and my skin is looking good. I appreciate you for that. And I would love to share with our audience what I've been using on my skin, but I'm not going to advertise for anybody for free, Mr. Floyd, because we want some sponsorship dollars. So,
Mm.
in order to get there, what we need is for the people to like, share, subscribe, and follow so that we can build an audience that will permit me to be able to go after the people whose skincare products I've been using because I don't have on any makeup other than lipstick and a little eyeliner. That's it. But then we can go after those people and say, here's our audience. They have noticed this improvement in my skin. I'd like to tell them about your product, but I'm gonna need for you to place an ad. Right? Okay. So that's the first thing I want to say. The second thing I want to say is I want to harp on this concept of community. The reason that our government has become so important to so many people is because they lack a sense of feeling like anybody else is going to help them if they need it. And so they feel like they have to have government involvement because if things go left, if they need a helping hand, they feel like that's what the government is going to be. Government is not our helping hand. They are really not helping much. And their hand is more in our pocket than really helping. So we really need to get back to a sense of community. We need to get back to what the Father told us in the word where he said the greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart. The second greatest is to love your neighbor. So we need to get back to loving our neighbor. Speaking of which, I need to go check on my neighbors and see if they need anything. So thank you for the reminder, Mr. Floyd. We don't do this because we're trying to bash our government. We really you like serving, right, Mr. Floyd?
I like serving. I enjoy it. And I
Me
still
too.
go to just as many functions today that I did when I was running for office.
I don't do that because I didn't do it before I was in office, so I didn't feel like I needed to do it afterward. I did it while in office because I didn't want people to be like, "Well, where's she at?" Because I do want to be present for the people whose voice I reflect. But I don't have to do that now because I don't speak for none of y'all. I speak for me and Jesus. So I don't have to do that anymore. But rest assured, if ever in that position again, I'd still show up because I like to be around the people whose voice I reflect. But I'll say this, I enjoyed it too. So this we don't do this because we didn't love what we did. We do this because we love the people we did it for. We love the people we did it for. And we want you to be able to think about these things so that you can make a decision for yourself as to how you want to move. I don't want you to do what I do. I don't want you to support who I support. I don't want you to not like what I don't like. I want you to think about it for yourself and be able to make your own decision about who you support, what you like, what you don't like. Because we are two different people. We have two different lives. But if you can think about this without having the government influence you, without having the party systems influence how you see it, then you're going to be winning, and they're going to have to really work hard to court you as somebody who earns their support.
And Keisha, in closing, please don't have the backbone of an earthworm in your
Because
decision.
if you do, you might as well just go home.
Go home
That's
with
right. That's right. And we ask that again that you like, share, subscribe, and follow. Tell a friend to tell a friend because look, we are here for you guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.